Righty, yeah. Pour some of that coffee, Mark P. So what was it like coming from Scotland when you were 10 to New Zealand?
Wow. Coming to New Zealand when I was 10 was interesting. Before I left Scotland, I looked at pictures.
Of New Zealand?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it looked like, I guess, Fiji styles, that kind of thing. And I was like, wow, my parents are taking me to Pacific Islands. Hey.
We're off to Tahiti.
Hey, yeah. So I was telling all my friends at school where I was going and showing off and, you know, going to the Pacific Islands and all that kind of stuff. But then we got here and it was like, oof, no one was wearing shoes. And I took that to be a economic indicator of the country at the time. But it was April, so it was still quite warm.
Yeah.
But I got sunstroke and it was just terrible. And, you know, day 3 into the country, I went to my first school and my teachers couldn't understand a thing I was saying, and it was a lonely existence. Even the football was different. It wasn't round. It was like an egg.
Of course.
It was an egg-shaped ball. People were saying, pick up the ball. And I was like, it's not a ball. It's an egg.
What part of Scotland did you come from?
A place called Dundee, which has very interesting history. It's it goes way back to like 1100. And used to be the major sort of trading port above London in the UK. They were really famous for importation of jute, which is also known as hemp.
Hemp, yeah.
Yeah. So they were the big importers of hemp in Europe. And lots of famous things about it. Captain Scott set off from there to go to Antarctica, to the South Pole, which he got to, but he got beaten by the Norwegian. It's famous for having the closest football stadiums in the world, closest football stadiums in the world.
Oh, in separation between themselves.
Yes,
close by.
Yes,
yeah.
So there's Dundee Football Club and there's Dundee United Football Club.
Wow.
Yeah.
That shows the tribalism, hey?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. It was always interesting to go to football matches on the weekend because you would see that tribalism, and it was basically colours, you know, because different colours of the team. So there's always a bit of skirmishes and a bit of that carry on, but not as bad as some of the other teams over there, like Glasgow, Celtic, and Glasgow Rangers, and they used to fight a lot. But theirs was a lot to do with religion. One was a Catholic team, one was a Protestant team. So
within the two Dundee teams, was it?
No,
that's a Celtic.
That was in the Glasgow teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you played for Celtic, you couldn't be a Catholic. You couldn't be a Protestant, and vice versa. If you played for Rangers, you weren't allowed to be Catholic. So and that carried on till about maybe 20 years ago. So.
Now the money's in the game. They just need to get the best players, doesn't
Now
it?
the money's in the game, yeah.
Religion's not the main concern anymore.
Not at all, no.
Interesting. I remember my nan going to her house when I was a little kid. This is in Australia. I can't remember his name now. I should be able to. My mum would know it. But he was the Orange Man. He was Protestant, and he would turn up with oranges. So it was like he was the Orange Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is the only example of like the real Protestant culture that I can think of as a kid. Well, by the time I was growing up in Australia, a lot of that had been diluted out, you know. The church we went to as a kid was uniting church.
I can't quite remember what we kind of... Oh, that's right. New Year's Eve, they used to bring a piece of coal to your house. So people would go door knocking with a sack of coal, and they would give you a piece of coal, and then they'd have to come in and you'd give them some whiskey.
Fair enough. Fair trade.
Yeah. So a piece of coal for a glass of whiskey. Yeah, you know. yeah, there was interesting little things like that happening when I was a kid. On Saturdays, the fathers used to take the guys to the football and then to the pub afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the mothers would have to come and get the kids from the pub because the fathers would just get a bit crazy on it.
That real culture, that pub culture.
Oh, it's almost like a second lounge, a lounge at the end of the road.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I mean, obviously, it's got the drawbacks of the alcoholism that goes with it, but the social aspect of it actually pretty strong for the community.
You don't, from my experience, you don't see, like from a New Zealand experience, you go to a pub, there's a lot of really drunk people and it's out of control and people getting pregnant and all sorts of stuff. Whereas over there, it's a lot more controlled.
Subdued.
Actually, subdued's a better word, yeah, because the last thing you want is to be barred.
And to be disgraced from that social circle.
Exactly.
Yeah, true.
So everyone keeps it, they might go down for a pint or two rather than 12 or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's societal, that community part of it is different, and you don't have here. You don't have in Australia and New Zealand. I don't think around pubs you don't have that.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's almost I mean, because everyone over there's got their local, and that's where they go to, and you can be identified by the local that you go to, sort of thing.
So the separation between the two footy clubs, the football clubs, what was that? Why is Dundee United different to Dundee? What caused that separation?
I actually don't know the full story. I know that Dundee started first, and then Dundee United, I think, were a group of smaller teams that just sort of got together to take on the big team, which was Dundee. But Dundee United eventually, which is my team, ended up having much greater success. They got into Europe and they kind of broke the stranglehold of Rangers and Celtic at the time.
Right.
And the manager of Dundee United was best mates with Sir Alex Ferguson, who did amazing things with Manchester United. And it was quite exciting times as a young man, or a young boy really still, just going to watch all these people running up and down pitches and 40,000, 50,000 people yelling and screaming.
Well, it's got that whole community aspect. I mean, obviously rugby is big here in New Zealand, and Aussie rules in Australia probably gets close to that. I suppose the closest thing I can think of. But you see that's happening all over the UK at every football stadium. The real supporter base going out for their teams in the colours. The chants and songs, that's something that's European. You in the UK, you don't really get that here.
It's very tribal.
Yeah,
real tribal actually.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We don't have that opportunity to have built those tribes here. We're 200 years old thereabouts in Australia, New Zealand. You guys, in the UK, you go back 1,000 years of history. More. But there are towns and things that have been around for 1,000 years.
Yeah, absolutely, and. A lot of those football teams you hear of are really just villages, and the next village along is the next team, and like Manchester United were never. All its big teams all started off very small, and suddenly when Sky came along in the 90s, and thrust a whole ton of money, and that's when it started to just transmogrify into this huge money-making thing that's
television, hey?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, Ronaldo getting paid, I don't know how much it was for 2 years' work, I mean, come on, it's like, wow.
Well, that's what you get, though, if you can draw a billion sets of eyes a year.
That's it.
Same with the cricket over in Aussie, the one-day series. Kerry Packer and guys back in the 70s just realising, hang on, traditional cricket, we've got television now. People don't need to go to the game. We can charge them, in effect, by advertising to watch from their lounge room and come into the cricket, and bred a whole new version of cricket. Like everyone alive, kids alive now, they think that one-day cricket's always been around, but prior to the 70s it wasn't. You had Test cricket, that was it.
So it was a bit like kind of how streaming's gone from, A lot of people won't go to the movies now because they'll just wait for it to be on their 50-inch TV or whatever.
Fuck yeah. Man, the prices, I was looking the other day, maybe the quality's not great on these TVs, but they're 75-inch TVs for $1,600.
Oh.
You know, I'm sure the Sonys, which are still cranking out at $4.5K to buy them, are doing better quality. But still, you can get a 75-inch TV for nearly $1,500.
How much would have they been 10 years ago?
10 times that. They'd be $15,000
Yeah.
or more. They didn't have 75 inches 10 years ago.
No.
They were, you know, and it's insane. Like we've had a TV for years in the lounge room. And I thought it was a 42-inch TV. No, it's not even that. It's a 40-inch TV. Oh. You can get 85s now. Like you can get something that's twice as big and more as the diagonal length of this TV we've got. It's just insane.
It is. And it takes me back to when I was younger and we had maybe a 19-inch TV, and it was
Yeah.
awesome. I don't know what the resolution was, but it was, probably like 140p or something.
As a kid, I remember we used to get I think it was the TV license man would come around. Like you had to pay for a license to have TV.
Right, yeah.
This is back in this is like, from my memory, this is like 77, 78, something like that maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember being so pissed off because this guy came round and jokingly said, maybe he's a TV repairman, I don't know, jokingly said, oh yeah, I'll put colour into your TV because our TV was black and white. And it was a joke. But I was like a 5-year-old kid. I thought it was legit. And when he went away and we still had a black and white TV, I was gutted. I was like, you bastard.
That would kill you.
Yeah.
Oh.
We had three, I think we had 3 channels back then, and it was, Saturday morning cartoons were a thing because that was the only time you got cartoons as a kid was Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Like my kids now, they've got no idea. They've got Netflix and YouTube. It's just constant access to whatever they want to watch whenever they want to put the TV on. We don't let them watch it all the time, but whenever it's on, it's not like, oh, shit, we've got to wait for Disney at 7:30 on Sunday night.
Yeah. I had this, when I was younger, this new product came on the market, and it was called Ready Break. And it was kind of like a new kind of porridge or porridge derivative. I don't know. Maybe a cheap porridge. It was Scotland. And the advertising for it was, if you had this Ready Break, you got this halo around your head. And I was sitting there, I was like 5 maybe. And I was saying to Mum, oh, Mum, I want one of those, man, And she was like, oh, we'll get you one. I was like, sweet. So she came home from the groceries with a box of it, and I was like, all right, I'm getting stuck in, so I got stuck in. But it was late at night. So the next morning I had some for breakfast, and then I marched off to school, you see. And I'm wandering around school going, what do you think, lads? Hey?
Oh, shit.
What do you think, lads? And they're all looking at me like,
what the hell's wrong with you today?
What's wrong with Mark today, He's having one of those moments. And anyway, no one could see it. I wonder why.
Ripped
Yeah,
off.
so I went home and I was like, Mum, what's the deal? I had heaps and last night and
no halo.
No sign. And she sort of had to, sadly inform me that she tricked me.
Marketing did. They just advertised you incorrectly.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's like sea monkeys. What? Little people grow in the water? No, man, they're kind of like shrimp things. If you're lucky, they'll be alive. If not, you've just done all your money.
So from that moment, I never believed a thing I saw on television ever again.
Good lesson to learn early on.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely a good
Always
lesson.
critique your advertisements.
Yeah.
Because they could be false.
I wonder now how much stricter they are. I mean, most of the advertising I see, I kind of look at it and I go, yeah, you're probably telling roughly the truth. But I wonder how much still complete bullshit gets through. It'll make your dick 9 inches longer, guaranteed.
I'd say heaps of bullshit gets through.
Yeah.
Because there's always small writing at the bottom of those ads, and there must be something in there saying...
The internet's the worst. What's on TV, I think it's kind of filtered, it's regulated more. What you see on TV is probably roughly what you're going to get. I see those things now on the internet where it's like, you've got blackheads and put this cream on your face and then it'll all magically pop out. And I'm like, I wonder if it really does work that well in real life.
Yeah, there's a lot of ads for those sort of got lung cancer? Here's a $9 product. It'll help. I'm just Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
The American advertising's great, isn't it? Like, try this new drug. Oh, by the way, the side effects are this, and this.
Here's something you may know, Tim, or you may not. The United States, with their drug advertising, how you're talking, the United States and New Zealand are the only two countries in the world that do that.
Where you've got to tell the side effects.
No, where they have quite like aggressive drug marketing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's not allowed anywhere else.
And isn't that weird? Because here you just accept that as being normal. Oh, everyone must allow drug advertising on television, but they don't. Cultural differences.
Yeah, I've noticed that 3 a.m. in the morning they'll have a advertisement for risperidone Consta, which is a kind of a frontline drug for schizophrenia. I was just like, they've got an ad for that? I mean, good. Yeah, it's weird timing for them to happen. Yeah, I can see 3 in the morning, people might still be up, and yeah, okay. But you don't.
Is that sort of name brand drug that you walk into your doctor and say, "Hey, I'd like some of this"?
Well, these days your GP probably will, because they do. Well, some do hand out antipsychotics like lollies. The one at the moment, which is kind of controversial, I believe, is a medicine called quetiapine, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners would have heard it because it's prescribed a lot for sleep. But it's actually an antipsychotic medication. It's nowhere indicated in the literature for insomnia. However, it's handed out like lollies, and it causes weight gain, causes problems with lipids. It can bring on early onset dementia, all these crazy side effects when there are better sleeping medications.
Yeah, or even better methods, like maybe exercise or something.
There's that whole
meditation.
Yeah, exactly. There's walking, all those. But for some reason, there's a big push for antipsychotic medication prescribed by general practitioners, and in some cases, of course, it's warranted. There is a place. But just the amount, I think I was talking to you earlier about someone I talked to who was feeling a bit down. She had had a relationship breakup, which had happened sort of about a month past, and she was just still feeling a bit down but sad, and sort of went to the doctor because she wasn't sleeping. The doctor just went, right, well, we're going to put you on an SSRI because there's obviously a chemical imbalance here, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And she's struggling now to get off it.
Yeah.
Really struggled. She was struggled to get on it.
Yeah.
The first month for her was just absolute hell. She used to say it was raining from her hands, like the amount of, sweat that was pouring off.
Yeah.
And now that she's on it, her I guess libido is gone suppressed. She doesn't feel good or bad. She just feels in the middle, and she's trying to taper off, but it's actually really difficult.
Yeah,
and she's really disappointed with the doctor because
you would almost think that something like that would need to be not maybe necessarily last resort, but something where you would say, well, what have we tried? What can I verify that you have done before we get to giving you these drugs?
Well, I think your idea just before of going for a walk and getting some exercise would be the first port of call.
Well, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe just try exercising a bit more, get up at the right time, go to bed at the right time, eat some good food, then see what happens in a week.
Yeah. Consistency of exercise makes a huge difference, and only needs to be a little bit. But if it's a little bit every day, and I think especially if you commit to it, like you say, even if it's a walk, but every day I'm going to do a walk and I'm going to make sure I get it in, you get a real reward out of that. Like after day one, you're like, okay, I said I was going to go for a walk and I did it. After day two, you're like, hey, I've done this for 2 days. Once you get past day 3 and you've done it 3 times, you kind of built some little reward system in your head which you control, which has got a good feeling. So you get to day 5 and day 6 and you're starting to go, I don't want to stop this now because I want to keep feeling good, like I'm achieving my thing. I think that consistency in exercise is really good for people, mentally and physically.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest illness we face in the world, I mean, a lot of people probably think it's heart disease or cancer, and they are 2 big illnesses, but the biggest thing we face is actually depression.
Depression, yeah.
And it's a big one.
Yeah.
And the medicines that we have are a bit hit and miss, you know. Some work really well. Some don't do a thing. Some make the people worse. You know, most of our antidepressants have a warning on the side of the packet, you know, may cause suicidal ideation, which is
the opposite of what you're looking for.
What we're looking for, you know.
Yeah.
I'm quite excited about things that are happening overseas with in regards to psychedelic medicine that's been really starting to show some fine results, especially with major depression.
Yeah.
The number that's been touted at the moment is 80% success, which is unheard of in our current system. And the beauty being is you only need to, with a trained guide in this, you only really need to do 1, 2, 3 sessions.
That's right.
And you're done.
Yeah. And these aren't, the experiences of psychedelics aren't the sort of things that make you go, oh, I want to do that again tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. It's like,
that's right.
You do it, hey, I've kind of learnt or experienced something here. I'm going to take some time to reflect on that. And it can be mind and life-changing.
Yeah, and for all the scientists out there that want to know why, psychedelics work on the serotonergic system and don't work on the dopamine system. Dopamine being our reward and, that was good, do it again. Do it again.
Right.
So that's why psychedelic medicine is anti-addictive. It can't be addictive because it doesn't work on dopamine.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it just slots into the serotonergic cell there and just does its thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've read a lot of accounts, people doing 2, 3, maybe sometimes 4 guided sort of sittings, and they no longer fit the criteria for depression. Yeah. And these guys were major depressives.
Addiction too, I've heard, with things like ayahuasca work really well for addiction.
Yeah, and psilocybin, and they all do. Any classic hallucinogen, LSD, those sort of type drugs work for addiction really well. And it's a really interesting story. During the 50s, in Canada, there was a hospital that was working purely on alcoholics and purely with LSD, and they were getting 80% success rates. Yeah. And the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, he was quite interested in all this because his kind of thing was abstinence-based, you know. So he went up there and tried LSD. And he also tried LSD with Aldous Huxley, famous author. And he was off the mind and the setting, wow, we actually have to bring this into AA. But unfortunately, that didn't work with the board members because it was a drug. Yeah. And so that was kind of taken away. And around about the same time, LSD was made illegal. All psychedelics were just pulled in and made illegal. So the groundbreaking work that was going on with depression, with alcoholism, with PTSD was stopped. So we've lost 30 years of
research.
And countless lives have been lost due to essentially war on drugs. Yeah. Now, I can kind of get where Nixon was coming from. Heroin, you know, it kills people. Methamphetamine, it's not good, kills people. The psychedelics, they're in a different category.
The term drug is too wide a term to be cast over the psychedelics. They should fall more into the category of medicine if you're going to start to class them anywhere, really. Yeah. And it's like medicine. You wouldn't go and drink a whole heap of cough mixture or have a whole heap of antibiotics for no reason. It's like you wouldn't necessarily go and have your psychedelics for no reason, but in a medical setting, there's great benefits.
Oh, and it's been shown, I've said 80% because 80% is the magic number that it seems to work on 80%, whatever you're using, whether it's ketamine or MDMA, whatever, or whatever you're using it for.
Yeah.
So for alcoholism, we'll get 80% success rate. For post-traumatic stress disorder, but 80% reduction in symptoms, etc. 80% seems to be the
thing.
The number.
That seems to come up in a lot. There's always that old rule, it's like the 80-20 rule. If something's really good, if you get 80% done, you're doing really well. Sort the other 20% out later on. It's probably just some built-in natural universal law, power factor kind of thing, that 80% is the max you can get.
Yeah, so our current pharmaceutical smoking cessation pill, and the name I can't quite remember now, I think it had like a 50% or maybe 52% success rate.
Yeah.
Psilocybin was used and it was 80%.
Yeah.
With no side effects.
Well, they work different ways. I mean, like we were saying earlier, your psychedelics allow you to have that other realm experience. They allow you, if your mind's open to it, you can learn things from it. I know heaps of people will be like, "Oh, no, it's a drug. It's ridiculous." You should try it sometime.
Yeah. I've learnt more about myself than I could possibly have imagined through psychedelics.
I've had a couple of very strong life lessons gifted to me.
Yes.
While on psychedelics.
Yeah, and nothing untoward or bad happened to me. In fact, if anything, it was an enlightening experience.
Yeah, enlightening is a great word.
And
revealing, enlightening.
Yeah, and something that you can almost, it's like a base.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, so that's me.
Yeah.
That's who I.
Very good term.
That's who I really am.
Yeah.
Not the other Mark who is, socially conditioned to say this at a certain time and wear this and wear that and do this. One of my bigger voyages, I noticed I was wearing clothes, and it was like, why?
Yeah.
I get it. It keeps us warm and stuff, but really we shouldn't be wearing clothes. Well, you don't see other things wearing clothes.
Just today, I had this thought. I was walking to school with the kids. Couple of, I think my brother and sister, school kids, were coming towards me, and one's wearing a skirt and one's wearing shorts. And I thought to myself, I'm like, why did that evolve that way? That men ended up with the shorts and the women got the skirts. Because I was thinking, like, in some ways you could think if it's for some sort of protective mechanism, then wouldn't it be more valuable to protect the womb and the source of life than, whether that's it or not. But what was it that drove it to be, okay, why don't men wear skirts and women wear shorts?
They do in Scotland.
Well, true, they do in Scotland.
Yeah. But I hear what you're saying. I don't know. That could be a whole podcast in itself.
That's That's what I thought. I thought I need to find someone in the field of textiles and fashion and clothing
the history of fashion. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And why can't men wear dresses? What's going on there? Well, they can.
Good question.
But society's still a bit funny.
Well, like, society's got its rules for conditioning things.
Or am I just too old now? Is that what it is?
No, there's got to be reasons that cultures establish norms.
Yes.
It must serve some purpose at some level. That's not to say they can't be changed over time, but at some point in time you would think the reason we wear hats an easy one. The reason we wear hats protects us from the sun. Okay, makes sense. There's a reason for it. The reason we wear clothes, yes, it protects us from the cold and from scratching ourselves on sharp bushes and things. It makes sense. But when you get into the detail, so why do women wear skirts and men wear the shorts? Don't know. Good question.
Yeah.
You would...
And the amount of advertising we do for...
Why don't we both wear skirts?
Well, yeah.
Another question, like, why the separation in the clothing? Like, is it because it come from a period of time where we all had short hair, so it was less easy to tell the sexes apart, so therefore clothing was used to determine that?
I'd argue that we all had long hair.
Well, maybe that was it. We all had long hair. And so it
just due to lack of hairdressing services back then, I'd say. I don't know. Yeah, interesting one. I have noticed though that long time ago they used to have in Hamilton these pub nights, and if you're a guy and you wore a dress, it was like free drinks and stuff. And let's just say the boys were very liberated. It was including myself. It was a unique experience. It felt great. Like it felt great. It really, really felt great. And I was doing crazy dances on top of a speaker stack, I think, in my dress and probably showing maybe a bit too much. I don't know. But
You're Scottish.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt great.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's a law against it.
No, I don't believe there is either. No. Yeah, years ago I went out to Mardi Gras in Sydney. I was living in Sydney years ago and went out and said, righto, talking to my girlfriend Mel at the time and said, righto, what have you got that I can wear? And ended up with like a sequin gold singlet top and one of her skirts and wore it out. Had a blinder of a night and was surprised by how many people came up to me and said, "Oh man, your outfit's awesome. That's so cool." That's both men and women. You know, it was an unusual thing, but it was Mardi Gras night. Wasn't that unusual? I suppose, but
no. I went to a few of those myself. I think actually
they were good fun parties.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I got chased by gay bikers on acid.
Did you?
Yeah, no shit. True story. It's a long story maybe for another podcast, but it was interesting. Yeah,
there were some heady days back then when we were living in Sydney.
Well, it was the Olympic year from memory. Around about 2000.
2000, you're right, it was.
Yeah, and I remember it well. There was a great vibe around the city, and everyone was partying, and some were partying way too much.
Do you remember your old boss?
Oh no, we're going there. We're going there.
Who would routinely drug his partner when he was annoying him too much?
Yes, with a couple of hypnos. Yeah. He was. I could tell some stories, but it would be R50. You know, it's seriously quite demented. Yeah. He actually had quite a part to play in the organisation of the Pride March down Oxford Street.
Oh, right.
Like, he was old school. He knew all the players, but boy, was he a sick puppy. He was a real sick puppy.
Yeah.
As in, I wouldn't like to be his partner, put it that way. Oof.
Yeah, those were the days, hey?
Yeah. Literally, he died about a year after I left Sydney.
Did he?
Yeah, from alcoholism, of all things.
That's got to be a horrible way to die.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you die. I mean, it can take a long time or it can take a short time.
But the lead up to it can't be fun, can it? You know, like getting to the stage where you're actually into the zone where you could die from alcoholism. You've got to be starting to feel pretty sick. Your liver can't be in good shape. Your kidneys probably aren't in good shape.
End stage, yeah. But you'll be surprised how many people still drink.
Yeah.
Because if they're at that stage, their body needs it. Their body actually needs it.
Yeah.
If you take it away, it goes into withdrawal.
Yeah.
And withdrawal from alcohol is worse than anything.
Yeah.
That includes heroin.
Yeah.
People used to die quite a lot from alcohol withdrawal until the advent of benzodiazepines, which just kind of calms everything down.
Right. So that's a treatment for end stage sort of alcoholism, is it, or trying to get off?
No. So benzodiazepines are used for alcohol withdrawal.
Right.
Especially acute alcohol withdrawal. So generally what will happen is they'll give them a loading dose, like quite a high dose. And what benzodiazepines do is they work on a neurotransmitter called GABA, which is like your handbrake kind of neurotransmitter. Mm-hmm. Alcohol also works on GABA. So the benzodiazepines trick the brain into think it's getting alcohol. Okay, so the brain then detoxes pretty quickly, actually, sort of 48 to 72 hours. And then you take away the benzos and then
you're back to a base level. As long as you don't start drinking again, you're okay.
Yeah, and there's plenty of ways that people can, like there's tablets you can take to stop people drinking, i.e. if they have just a sip, they'll be very, very sick. That's for people in early kind of recovery who just need that extra.
Yeah.
So that just covers them. They know if they have a beer, they'll end up in hospital.
The toughest thing that I've ever tried to stop taking, which I'd class as a drug, is sugar.
Oh, absolutely a drug.
Yeah, and it's the hardest thing. I mean, I've gone for long periods of my life where I've not drunk anything, not smoked any pot.
I'd just like to say this is full of sugar for my
coffee.
Yeah.
But man, the cravings. Once you shut down sugar and try and stop it, the cravings are strong, really strong.
Yeah, very.
You know, like you mentally have to fortify yourself against, no, I'm not going to go to the supermarket now and buy that block of chocolate and just eat it. You know, it's like that's how strong it is, sugar.
Yeah, it's well, that's the other thing as well. When you're withdrawing from alcohol, you're also withdrawing from a tremendous amount of sugar.
Yeah, well, true, which is probably what makes it so bad.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, even worse than other drugs, because heroin doesn't have the sugar in it if you're trying to withdraw from it.
No, you just have to go to the toilet quite a lot, and you know, it's not pleasant by any stretch of the imagination, but you'll live. But you know, to get back to alcohol, it's interesting. You know, I'm still seeing sort of almost headlines in the Herald about the methamphetamine epidemic in New Zealand, and yeah, there is absolutely, but the alcohol epidemic is by far more insidious, larger, bigger, destructive. Dr. David Nutt from Imperial College, who's a bit of an expert on psychoactive substances, created a chart with all the drugs, everything, and where they kind of lie in
terms of harm
and social damage and da-da-da. And right at the top, alcohol by a country mile.
Yeah.
Country mile.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And I sometimes struggle with why people think that alcohol isn't damaging or isn't a drug or.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? We know the term drug has a connotation, and like we say, slipping psychedelics under there is a bad idea because you're not doing justice to the medical capabilities of the psychedelics. But alcohol's not a drug; it's alcohol. We don't stick it under that umbrella. Well, we should.
We should. It's a heavy sedative.
Yeah, it is.
It can knock people out. I mean, it's highly dangerous, and it's what people don't actually understand, because people's inhibitions are lowered, which just causes this false sense of bravado, whether you're 18 or 78.
Yeah,
you know, and I find, look at it this way, Tim. If a society can tolerate alcohol, it can tolerate cannabis, or psychedelics, or in fact, it can tolerate anything.
If a society that tolerated psychedelics, MDMA, would run the chance of being a more balanced society.
Absolutely, I agree. The head of the ED department at Wellington Hospital is pushing for MDMA to be legalised. Yeah. And his rationale being is then you've got options. Yeah. Because basically our option, if you and me want to go out tonight in the city, our options are tobacco and beer.
Or illegal drugs.
Which are probably safer.
Yeah. Well, yes, it generally probably, even without the production scrutiny upon them, probably generally.
Yeah. And, you know, let's just pick let's pick MDMA, you know. What's the worst thing that's going to happen tonight?
You're going to have fun, probably hug some people.
Lots of hugs. Yeah, you're going to meet some new people.
You're going to have a sore face the next day from smiling.
You're going to probably save a bit of money because you're not going to be eating any burgers afterwards.
But let's just be fair that some people may vomit. They may have a vomit as it's coming on.
That could happen.
Some people may need to go to the toilet and have a poo.
That occasionally happens too, yes.
And occasionally, unfortunately, but very occasionally, some people will, usually if they're inexperienced and young, may die through doing things like drinking ridiculous amounts of water while they're on pills and that sort of thing. But in general...
Yeah, the statistics last year in England the data indicated more people died falling off a horse last year than taking MDMA. And generally, people that have died with MDMA, it's MDMA in their system. They've used other drugs like meth or alcohol's a big one. Alcohol's a big one.
Yeah.
MDMA by itself is, from my understanding and readings, relatively safe.
Yeah. Oh, I was reading from a couple of years ago. There was a study done in the UK where they'd caught up with a whole heap of 90s ravers who had done heaps of MDMA and got them to basically self-assess along with members of the general population who hadn't done that on their mental health and how they felt things. And the people who'd been self-medicating for those years had a general higher level of self-assessed happiness and mental health than the general population who hadn't. So there's something to be said for letting people have access to these drugs.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if we look at the MDMA buzz of the 90s or late 80s, early 90s in the UK, for example, that changed society.
Yeah.
Like on a massive scale.
Changed the football and everything.
Yeah, the football hooligans suddenly stopped beating each other up. They were hugging each other and smiling and trying to outdance each other. It changed things like fashion, Suddenly cargo pants came in because you needed pockets for your phones and your drink bottle and all that carry on, and trainers were big again.
See, that's a really interesting piece of fashion history, the origins of why cargo pants are so popular.
Yeah.
Because there was a good need for it.
There was a great need. Water bottles. A change of clothes, or change of top.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing, your bag of pills, whatever. It's what you need, and you needed good shoes, And the thing that was so fascinating is that it went from a very cool kind of scene in these nightclubs in 85 to overnight being baggy
everywhere.
And huggy and kissy and lovey, and it was a massive. And this wasn't just 5 or 10 people doing this. This was half of the UK.
What's really interesting too, that runs in parallel with that, is the way that different drugs have their different musical genres. They go from house and your pills, rock and your alcohol, acid, your drum and bass, those type of things. It's really interesting too,
Oh yeah, I mean, and then. From their initial house music, all your genres went out there. Your drum and bass, your jungle, your trance, your grime these days. You're everything, And it's and it really all started with 3 English geezers going to Ibiza, and they just went there and they went, oh wow, we need to bring this back, and they did. 3 guys did that. And, these 3 guys are now superstar DJs and et cetera, but 3 guys went to Ireland, went, let's bring this back to the UK. And somehow the combination of the UK weather, which is never that great, MDMA and house music together just exploded.
Bigger than the sum of their parts. The 3 things individually are all right, but you put them together and
Of course, the media had a field day going, it's going to kill everyone. And
cultural change.
You usually do, but now we're at a point where the love drug MDMA is being used in the States for veterans.
Yeah, veterans for relationship, people working on trying to stop themselves getting to the point of divorce, those kind of things.
In fact, your home country, Tim, just 2 weeks ago, the psychiatric board have given the go-ahead to prescribe psilocybin and MDMA.
Have they?
Yeah, which is big stuff.
Yeah.
When the New Zealand cohorts were asked last week if that'd be the case here, they were no. It was a big no. So America's going ahead with it, UK's going ahead with it, Australia's going ahead with it, Canada, quite a few countries, but we're still stuck.
Interesting.
We're still stuck. But there is, there's trials going on in Otago University and Auckland University. So... we'll see.
I guess give it some time for the results to filter out from those other countries.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once we start seeing, we're already seeing it now. You can go on YouTube and watch people that have gone through trials or gone through an ayahuasca ceremony or whatever, and, they come out and they're better.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're paid actors, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, and then they have follow-up videos, and you can see these people's
They do.
lives have changed.
They do that. Well, they do because this is the thing. People who haven't experienced psychedelics, probably not through any fault of their own, have nothing to compare it to and cannot understand what the experience can be like in terms of being a life-changing experience. You know, like you can have an experience where you get a whole insight to the operation of the universe or yourself, like you're saying, your base self, which you couldn't see before.
That's right.
But now you've got that, you can hold on to it, you've got that learning, and that can totally change you. Like any learning can change you, but these are fundamental learnings that you can get from psychedelics.
Well, I think the beauty of psychedelics is there's no running away. Like with alcohol, you can run away inside alcohol.
Yeah.
With heroin, you can run, all that kind of stuff. Psychedelics, you can't run.
No,
and if
they're revealing.
If there's something you're hiding, you better get ready.
Yeah,
because it's coming to the top.
My sister asked me a while ago about ayahuasca, if I'd be keen to do a session or what I thought of it, and my response was, I would like to think that I'm ready to do one. I would like to think that I would handle it okay and that I'm kind of okay enough with myself, because I don't see it as a trivial experience doing that.
No.
Like I see that as being not necessarily formidable, but a serious experience that you should prepare mentally for in the right way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I mean, you're going to the core of yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
It's the real you.
Yeah.
And, it can be quite, enlightening for people who have spent maybe 30, 40 years with cultural conditioning to suddenly discover, oh, my God, I'm not who I thought I was.
Yeah.
Which ultimately is a great thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a classic finding oneself.
Yeah, can be very freeing.
Yeah. And it can also, get rid of a few neuroses that might be sitting around, or it's. But I always say it's not for everybody.
No.
There's people in society that have been wounded way too much by abuse or a number of things, and maybe no. I don't say it's for everyone.
Yeah.
But if you're interested, look into it, because there's plenty of data now. There's plenty of YouTube videos. There's plenty of documentation that this stuff works used in the correct manner. Native American Indians been used for thousands of years, mescaline. South Americans been using cacti for thousands. I mean, it's all in the historical record.
It's interesting too that they're natural. They grow out of the ground.
Yeah.
You couldn't ask for anything more natural as a source for your learning and experience than something that just grows out of the planet you were born on.
And a mushroom that grows out of the ground picked, you're in the same trouble as holding a bag of heroin.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely insane, because I'm sure the mushroom was around before the courts of law. Like, long time.
Yeah.
But I think it's... The laws need to change to reflect the society, and the society's changed, therefore the laws need to reflect that.
Well, like I say, I think there's benefits there. You think all those people who are struggling under some sort of PTSD, trauma, whatever it might be, who, if they were given access and enabled to, in a nice controlled setting, have that experience and resolve those issues.
Yeah.
And actually resolve them, like you say, maybe in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions for life, rather than trying to resolve it with some sort of half-baked drug measure which you're going to take for the rest of your life.
Which won't resolve it. It's a sticking plaster.
It'll treat the symptoms, perhaps.
Yeah. That's it.
Society benefits from that. Those people come out, hey, I'm better, I can be more social, I can be more active and productive in the community. That's a win. That's not a bad thing. That's a win.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the law's behind it, but my understanding is that you can't patent mushrooms or things like that. So whether drug companies even have an interest.
Oh, they're drug companies, I would imagine, cynically, that they work actively to suppress the legislation of psychedelics.
Possibly, because it goes against their model.
Yeah, until they're at the stage where they feel that they could actively synthesize them and the market is there enabled for them to sell their synthesized version of it, there's no money in that for them. So you spend a few billion just to stop that until we're ready. Yeah,
the only kind of money-ish way I've kind of seen is, I think it's called Esperanto. It's ketamine that comes in like this little device, and you just press on it, it goes up your nose. It's like taking a line of ketamine, but it goes up your nose, and then that improves symptoms right there and then.
Right.
So I think there's money in that aspect, but I don't think there's too much money in mushrooms and ayahuasca retreats as far as a doctor prescribing that,
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, the doctor will.
It's not a commercialized product in that way. It's still got its roots in the spiritual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it should. These should, because these are spiritual things. These psychedelics act at your spiritual core. That's kind of part of the potency of them, I suppose.
Yeah, and I know there's a few kind of churches around the world that are incorporating ayahuasca.
The Soma.
Yeah.
Oh, ayahuasca.
Yeah, like I think it's called Santo Daime, which is a South American church, and it's basically Catholicism. Yeah. But instead of having their little wafer,
the bread of Christ,
they ingest ayahuasca, which would make for an interesting church
Sunday session.
Sunday session at the church. Right, I'll be back in about 7 hours.
Yeah, there's a saying that I've heard about acid. And the term is that like you're done with acid before it's done with you, which I think is true. And it's that, and for me, that reflects that introspective element of it, where you might have had the fun, flashy lights for a few hours, but now the acid wants to turn the microscope on you and make you look at the microscope.
That's right.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is. And it's probably why George Harrison famously once said, you only need to do LSD once.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to that.
Yep.
You only need to do it once. Because if you haven't learned the lesson, then,
Yeah.
And I mean...
McKenna would say that about, I think it was McKenna would say that about pot too. He thought that it shouldn't be something that you do all the time. Instead, you should occasionally do it in the heroic dose and have a real trip and exploration, even with pot.
Yeah. I think edibles would be the way to go with that. McKenna, I haven't heard from him for a while, for obvious reasons. He's dead. For listeners, Terence McKenna was sort of the mushroom bard of the 80s and 90s. Yeah. Extraordinary man. Yeah. Like some of the stuff he would talk about was just like that only he could have got there for him to know that kind of information. He was, he had two famous things. He talked about his heroic dosage, which was 5 dried grams in a dark, quiet room, which would make it quite colourful from the interior. But my favourite thing he talked about was the stoned ape theory, which we were discussing earlier, which I think...
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about the stoned ape theory.
It's a great theory.
Because, hey, so, 3 million years ago, Australopithecine africanus which was apparently the type of humanoid around, was wandering across the savannah of Africa, and being a hunter and gatherer, they used to just eat things they would see, and, if it agreed with them,
keep eating them.
Keep it on. So you can imagine the hungry little caveman or cave girl finds, 600 magic mushrooms and thinks,
eats a couple. These are all right. I'll have a few more. Fill up.
Yeah. So eats, 140, and he can't finish the rest. So he thinks, I'll take them back to the tribe or the clan. And as he's walking home, he mysteriously starts
seeing through
time, and colours are very intense, and the sky's upside down, and and suddenly discovers a language, like a voice. He discovers a voice.
Yeah.
And psilocybin's very famous for that. It's very famous for inducing language.
Yeah.
So anyway, he turns back up at the clan, and he's by then quite intoxicated on 140 magic mushrooms and just falls to the ground in laughter because everything's so funny, as it would be. And then the rest of the clan got on it, and
they start talking.
And you know, they gave the clan advantages. I mean, psilocybin increases visual acuity, which is a really good thing if you're hunting, and you know. It also has a funny. It works on the fight or flight as well. It takes rid of fear, which a lot of MMA fighters they're currently using psilocybin.
Microdosing it, are they?
Yeah, to get rid of that kind of fear thing.
Yeah.
And if you take enough psilocybin, you'll get some kind of spiritual / arousal / orgiastic kind of thing. So if that was going on and there was lots of children being born to lots of different mothers, no one really would have known who the fathers were. So that whole "she's mine" or "it's mine" or that disappears because you've got ego suppression, because the psilocybin's in the diet. So all that kind of macho bullshit just disappears because the ego's basically suppressed. And I believe that, you know, this sort of activity was going on for maybe 2-3 million years and until we stopped hunting and gathering. And then we, you know, started agriculture.
But it's carried through, like you were showing me before, some of those pictures from Europe, like religious pictures and stained glass windows and some French churches where there's Christ and then there's all these mushrooms growing up beneath them.
There's a lot in religion that could be answered with psychedelics for sure. But I think the stopping hunting and gathering meant that we started growing things like wheat and barley and broccolis, whatever. So the mushrooms
moved away from them and took some of their land where they were growing for wheat.
Well, we didn't have access to the mushrooms, but we had access to things like wheat. So we could make rudimentary things like alcohol.
Yeah.
And so that was we haven't got our mushrooms, but we've got this now.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally society or civilizations would have changed immensely.
Yeah.
Because you're going from a psychedelic to a sedative. And, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what happens when societies change from something like that to something like that. A classic example, I think it's from around about 1720. There's a famous picture in London Art Gallery called Gin Alley, and they commissioned an artist just to draw a picture of just what he saw on the street that day. And it's just crazy and it's diabolical. There's people hanging out of windows. There's rape going on. There's people passed out. Everyone's on gin because they couldn't drink the water. And I remember seeing it going, wow, what a horrible place.
Hellscape.
Yeah, it's hell. Yeah. It's you know, they went from the mushrooms of Eden to the gin bottles of hell in a very short period. And but, you know, there's a huge renaissance, psychedelic renaissance going on now. I mean, there's Netflix documentaries, there's books, there's movies, there's podcasts, there's all sorts.
Hopefully the ability of researchers in Australia and America now to be able to do some of this research and bring forth some of the value of the psychedelics will help that process begin to snowball and shift them out from under the drug title and into. And look, I'm saying put them into the medicine category. Maybe they need their own category, but certainly the medicine category is a better way to refer to them than a drug for them, because they're, like we were saying before, they're not the type of drug that it's like, oh, let's go out and party and get wasted
let's snort some mushrooms, man.
Yeah, on these. It's like, no, let's find a nice place, do this, see what we learn from this. This could be quite powerful.
Well, yeah, it needs to be treated with respect.
Yeah,
otherwise
good word.
It will, and you know, you have to go in with the right intent.
Yeah,
like going in to just get wasted, man, isn't going to work.
No, there's power, because they definitely take some sort of not control, but within your mind as a neurotransmitter, they change the way that your mind operates. So if you've set your mind the right way, I think this is a big part of some of the ayahuasca ceremonies that go down, is people approach it, and if you've got a good guide, they will say, well, what is your reason for doing this?
That's right.
You know, it's like, oh, I want to heal something. Heal what? I want to heal some emotions or emotional scars or something in my psyche that's been damaged. And okay, so that's your purpose here. So you focus on that and prime yourself for that. And then hopefully with the experience, if you're lucky, you will get some of that out of this.
And also that gives the guide something to work with.
Yeah.
Because the guide's seen it a million times before, and a certain song or a beat of a drum will be the trigger to help.
Yeah,
you know?
Which is very different from alcohol. It's like you don't approach alcohol and go, yeah, I'm going to try and deal with this childhood trauma that I had by having a drink. No, it's just going to suppress it for a while and keep it there.
That's all it does. In fact, I mean, you scratch any addiction, whether it's sex addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, Facebook addiction, any addiction, you scratch it, you'll find trauma.
Yeah,
that's now well beyond proven. People don't pick up heroin syringes or bottles of Jack Daniels and get, completely crazy.
Yeah,
just because they can.
Yeah. No, and that's another interesting one too in legislating drugs in a country, making them accessible and decriminalising them, is that just because drugs are there doesn't mean that everyone's going to run out and do them.
No, and we've seen that in Holland when with the cannabis cafes when they used to be open. Yeah. There wasn't a great, huge influx of people from Holland.
No.
They were just like, tourists.
Fine, who cares? That's right.
They had obviously a very mature approach to it.
Yeah. But you'll find the same thing here and everywhere. If they were to legalise MDMA, then there'd be an initial hump where people had some interest. They would try it. Yep, they'd enjoy it. They'd probably try it again, but they're not going to become addicted to MDMA.
No, I don't think so. It's it's not a classic psychedelic, but it's what's known as an empathogen, and its addiction rates don't seem to be of any concern compared to alcohol or painkillers or whatever. Yeah. Something like MDMA also has anti-addictive properties as well, because people also get in touch with their to be a bit hippie heart chakra, and they realise, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be doing this behaviour much longer. Yeah, it's not serving me well anymore. Or it gives me no joy anymore.
Well, it's a great way. I think MDMA is a great tool for enabling conversation.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the key to it. It gives you a mental clarity so that you can actually think quite clearly, speak clearly about what you wish to speak about, and it gives you that ability to be able to open and talk without, sort of hesitation or fear that you might be embarrassed by what you're going to say. You feel more comfortable in saying those things, which just enables conversation. You can start to talk about problems.
Yeah, I think MDMA, out of a lot of them, has the most promise in psychotherapy due to that. Yeah. Because MDMA state already is pro talking. So if you've got a good psychotherapist in there that's trained with MDMA, you got to have a lot going on. Yeah. I mean, I've heard, don't quote me who said this, but I've heard like one MDMA session is the equivalent of a year long's worth of talking
therapy. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd rather spend 6 hours on a couch speaking to someone lovely than, oh shit, I'm running late for my psych appointment again or whatever.
Well, again, if you think of the mechanics of how it works in terms of dealing with an issue or talking about a topic, you could spend a year with your partner having some issue and half talking about it, but never really opening up and talking about it and getting a response and understanding and moving forward with it. But in your session with MDMA, you reach that level, you can do that. And so
that's why it was so helpful for marriage counselling back in
the 60s,
Dallas in the 70s. It was used a lot.
It was.
A lot. And
successfully too.
Great success, yes. It has great success wherever it's used, it seems. But yeah, I think out of a lot of them, MDMA will probably the one that will maybe show the most promise.
It's also got promise in, and I'll probably get the name wrong here because it was years ago that I saw it, but in Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
Yes, I've seen that too. Yeah. That's interesting actually.
Yeah.
That's could that you might have seen the same one as me. There was a guy on a trampoline, I think.
It's a guy who was an acrobat but suffering from early onset Parkinson's. And yeah, the end of the documentary is fantastic. Well, they show him earlier in the documentary. He's trying to make a cup of tea in his kitchen, and he basically has to say to the interviewer, "Look, I need to stop talking to you so that I can focus enough to try to stop my tremors to be able to fill the cup of tea." It's really bad. And then at the end, they do a placebo trial and then an MDMA trial with him. And on the placebo day, he sits down on the couch and they say, can you stand up? He fucking battles to stand up. And can you take your jumper off? And he battles to get his jumper off. And then the day he's been given the pill, it's 45 minutes later, he's had the MDMA. He's sitting on the couch and you can visibly see the tremors are reduced. Can you stand up? Yep, he stands up. Can you take your jumper off? Yeah, take the jumper off. The tremors are just reduced dramatically.
Yeah.
But the most gorgeous part of it is at the end, like the credits are rolling and they're playing some music and he's just like rocking out.
Yeah, well, that's the other great side effects of MDMA is music appreciation.
Yeah,
it's absolutely, and dancing. It's absolutely wonderful.
It's got fitness built into it as well.
I know. It's like 6 hours of dancing. That's good cardio.
Yeah, great cardio.
Interestingly, a lot of girls I used to live with in London used to love it for that. Like, it was part of their kind of exercise
routine.
Like, right, who's got the MDMA? And it was like...
let's go out and dance for 6 hours.
Yeah, because they couldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, who can actually dance for 6 hours, Yeah. But anyway, they could.
Do you remember, not remember, but have you heard about back in the 30s or 40s maybe, when they used to have those dance competitions in the States and people would drop dead after like 7 days, no sleep, endless dancing?
Yeah. They used to have, it was like they were going for records, weren't they?
They must have been going for a record, but it's weird the way that people would drive themselves to beat someone else or achieve something. Like, I'm not going to stop dancing until I die.
There was a lot of pet pills back then, though.
True. Maybe that's what was driving it. That's very possible too.
It was, like the kids these days with their nitrous oxide.
NOS,
yes. Decimating the landscape everywhere with their little
silver
canisters. I know. Just buy a bigger one. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to see a return of that. I remember it being big when I was a kid. NOS and other dissociates, and I see the kids getting into it big time. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But,
it's an interesting drug too. It can certainly give you visions or lessons. NOS,
absolutely.
Yeah, it can sort of take you to a point where you're again. It's by no means the same sort of thing as the reflection you get from psychedelics.
No.
But you can be shown a story which has quite a strong meaning attached to it. When you come out, you're like, okay, I got that. Yeah.
I know of people that will use it as they're peaking on psychedelics.
Oh, yeah.
Just to take them another level.
Right.
But I haven't really heard much back from that realm because it's probably a bit too...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. Like you were saying before with, was it Kate Winslet doing her breathing in Avatar?
Yeah, Avatar, 7.5 minutes. Yeah, underwater. Yeah, held a breath underwater for 7.5 minutes, which is normally the work of a marine.
A diver.
A diver, not a Hollywood film starlet,
But that's part of that thing. Like she said, right, that's it. I'm doing this.
Yes.
I'm going to go past what 99% of the planet can do, which is hold their breath for 1:30.
Yeah.
And push through the mental and physiological barriers to get to 8 minutes or 7.5 minutes or 6.5 minutes. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that alone is a spiritual experience, I would say.
Well, again, I think this is one of those little things where she said, okay, I'm going to do a minute today. I'm going to do a minute 5 tomorrow. I'm going to do a minute 7 tomorrow. And that accumulation and that positive kick she's getting from I did it. Like, there's no way you're going to stop me now from getting to 6.5 minutes. This is my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it must have been a strange thing to be asked, when you're auditioning for a film.
How long can you hold your breath for?
Yeah, like we want 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Really? 7 minutes? But yeah, I mean, it shows. The film's great. It looks great.
Yeah.
It's a visually masterpiece, wonderful. It's exactly what I expected it to be. Just amazing. Story, let down a little bit.
But you don't watch it for the story.
Not really. No. Not really. I just wanted to see all the fancy tricks.
Yeah.
And there was plenty of them. There was plenty of fancy tricks.
The first Avatar, what I really appreciated with it was the in-screen 3D. So prior to that, the 3D films I'd seen, like Jaws 3D and that, it was what I'd consider out-of-screen 3D. Things appeared to come out of the screen towards you.
Yeah.
In Avatar was the first one where there was lots of in-the-screen 3D. So you had depth going back behind the screen.
More immersive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a limitation or if back in the 70s and 80s it was just thought, the cool thing to do is throw things out at people. And so everything seemed to be coming in front of the screen.
Yeah. It's probably a gimmick, really.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
I think what James Cameron was trying to do this time is just really immerse you. Like, you're in it. You're in that world, and it's all around you. And I shudder to think what he'll do with the next 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever.
There's meant to be a third originally. There's a plan for 3 of them, I think.
The third's been filmed.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, it's in
post-production.
And I think they've filmed enough for 4 as well. And, it'll just go on, and then James will probably pass away and he'll pass it on to some other guy. And
do you think we'll get 3D in the home, 3D TVs in the home at some stage?
Yeah. I don't know how big the market will be. I
think it would. I think if it's done well and people don't get headaches and things like that, and it's not requiring you to wear glasses,
that's the big one.
Yeah. And surely, you would think that that's not an insurmountable thing for humans to achieve when you look at everything else we do. I imagine you'd buy one. I mean, if there's a big Sony Bravia 85-inch. And then there's a big Sony Bravia 85-inch 3D, and the 3D is good. If you've got the money, you're going to buy the 3D one, surely. You can watch Avatar at home and see it in 3D.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, as long as you've got a 2D, 3D button, because watching advertisements for could be kind of strange.
Well, it might be. It might become the norm, though. It's like some of those movies like Back to the Future, when they jump into the future and everything's quite 3D popping out of the billboards and things. Like, maybe we'll get that way once we've got the technology.
Isn't it fun? Just speaking of Back to the Future, it's like, I've just been noticing everyone wants to go back to the past. Like fashion and everything. It's all, and music even, it's all sounding a bit 80s, 90s. And like the big shit, like the girls wearing shoulder pads, and I'm just kind of going, I don't know, man. The 80s were all right, but they weren't that amazing. We didn't have internet.
No, true. We didn't have internet, but I've got to admit, I dig what happened in those. I think we didn't realise how lucky we were in the 80s in terms of the music we had.
Yeah.
When I flick back to some of those tracks, the musical production on them, the creativity, like that breadth of pop and everything that you got in the 80s.
Yeah.
There was some good gear there.
Yeah, it was. And then, when the 90s kicked and dance culture sort of kicked into place, that was all new.
Yeah.
It was quite exciting, I remember, at the time. I thought, wow, this is something new.
Yeah.
And it's still going. 30 years on, it's still going. It's still as popular as ever.
Well, House has got the heartbeat, You spend 9 months hearing that.
Yeah.
It's ingrained in us as humans, I think. I've noticed earlier at one stage tonight, one of the tracks came on while we were sitting outside, and I saw you going like this, and I felt myself going like this. It was just that the 4/4 beat came in for a while in the house.
Yeah, well, we're probably just so used to it now that it's just ding, 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 ding. What was I talking about? I completely forgot.
I don't know, house music and the genres and how exciting it was when it turned up. Oh,
that's right. Yeah. There was a period of time when Technics 1200 turntables were outselling electric guitars.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be a DJ.
Yeah, well, everyone was saying vinyl's dead and vinyl sales have been going up and up and up.
Vinyl's huge again.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, better sound.
Yeah. Mixcloud is good. Do you ever jump on the Mixcloud app?
SoundCloud I do. I've looked at Mixcloud, yeah.
What I like about Mixcloud is that you can they just have a live section now, and it's just people from around the planet who are just posting themselves mixing live.
Oh, that's cool.
And it is fun, and they have a little chat. It's real rudimentary and basic, a little chat channel. But I've had some Saturday mornings here. I've been cleaning the pool or mowing the lawn. Not mowing the lawn, too noisy. Doing something out the back. And I'll have the speakers going, and this like DJ Gavlar from the UK. He's great. He's banging out some tunes, and you just type in, nice one, brother, and you'll get this back. Oh, Bavundra, New Zealand, how's it going, brother? Coming over the speakers, and Renee's going, is that guy talking to you? Like, yeah, it's a little bit of interaction. It's fun, man.
I tell you what I've been liking watching a little bit on YouTube is like the old school DJs. Who are just using turntables and a real basic mixer.
Yeah.
And they're doing like Carl Cox pops into mind. Yeah. He does some cool stuff. Whereas these days, it's all auto looped and everything's auto. Like you don't have to beat mix or anything, I don't think anymore. You just press a button. And in fact, it's just a controller and a laptop and I think the art's gone.
I guess in a lot of cases it is because it becomes so accessible that all of those little features will pop up. But still, there'll be people out there who are like, no, I'll just turn all those flashy buttons off and do it old school. Just give me the slider, a couple of faders.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so easy these days with MP3s and controllers, and it's not easy. You've obviously got to learn it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just I've been listening to a lot of early house music as of late, and even a bit of what you could loosely call rave, and so much of it was better back then. And I'm not saying that because I'm older. I'm being so serious here. It's like, what happened? Somewhere along the line, something changed.
I think
the joy and the love disappeared.
Well, maybe. What I think part of it is, because I have put some thought into this, because I'm not just being an old fart here and saying the old stuff's better than the new stuff. I don't think that's it. I think there's really good stuff here today too, but it's diluted with a lot of bad stuff. But you go back 20 years, what we were seeing and what we were buying was pretty good because there was a smaller base. So the good guys girls made it to the top.
Yeah.
And that's what we listened to. So we're hearing the good stuff. Now, anyone, like Mixcloud, SoundCloud, it's just swamped with music. So you hear a lot of shit, and it's harder to hear the good stuff, but the good stuff is still there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's always going to be great creators and great producers.
I just think it's more difficult now to pick it in. To access it, you got to spend time. And if I'm trying to find even just like new house DJs I want to listen to, really want to find something that's really banging or something that's just really chilled and I can work to, it takes a while to go there and look through all these endless names that you don't know, and then you're like, oh, this dude's great, awesome. Save him and come back to them. But you got.
I think the dance parties are these huge big things they have like Tomorrowland and like that's changed it as well. Suddenly the DJs become the focus, like they have. Fatboy Slim was here the other week, I think, and you got 30,000-40,000 people looking at him.
Yeah.
When I first started in dance music, that wasn't really the focus. The guy was playing some music, but the focus was the hot chick in front of you.
The people on the floor and dancing.
And connecting and smiling at each other and not, sort of...
to the DJ,
Yeah, and everyone's got their phones out and they're doing the DJ, like videoing the DJ. And at what point are they actually...
having fun.
Yeah, are they having fun?
Yeah.
Or connecting or whatever. I watched a thing on... Liam Gallagher from Oasis the other week. He just played to 250,000 in England somewhere, and they'd played to 250,000 as Oasis 20 odd years before, but the difference was phones.
Yeah.
So the Oasis gig, everyone was connected to them and were heaving and jumping up and down and singing their lungs out. But
Now everyone's
But
trying
now
to
one's
keep the
just-
person in front of them out of the way to take
Just
the shot.
getting the right focus and all this.
Did you
and-
see the picture that came out last week from basketball? I don't know who the basketball player was, but some guy's landing some amazing slam dunk from a mile downtown. And everyone, apart from 2 people in the background, had their phones up at it. There are 2 people sitting down watching it. Everyone else is up like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where does it end? You know,
Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it is a change. But, yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, but but where does it end? You know,
I don't know.
Good
question.
Is Neuralink going to be the?
Now, Neuralink, that's an interesting one too, because it's something which about a year ago, there was quite a lot of chatter about it, and it's all gone quiet again. So I don't know if it's gone quiet because it's been successful or unsuccessful. Unsuccessful, gone quiet, let's just put that away, not mention we failed, or fuck, this is
Some serious
shit.
Yeah.
We better keep this on the down low and figure out what we're going to do with it. I don't know. I should try and do some bit of research and find out about it.
I think in many ways we've almost got one because we've got the phone. That's our interface. Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's right.
You know, that can contact us to anyone, anywhere, do anything it wants.
It's condensed so many of the activities we would have done in the past with different medium into one device. Like we would have watched TV on a TV, would have read a newspaper on a newspaper, would have read books on books, listened to the radio, would have taken photos with a camera. It's just all condensed into one device. You're right. The next step is it gets condensed into your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, bad, evolution. Don't know.
I know. So I'll just think phone Tim, and telepathy will come into play.
I don't think it can be too far away before at least the visual component of this will get synced to your contact lenses.
Oh, yeah.
So, however you do it, you say a word, hey, Google, and your contact lens goes, whoop, and what would be on your phone is now there. Maybe you do the controlling of it from here, to get what you want and do all the searching, but you're getting the visuals turning up in your eye. So I can put this down. I can be talking to you, but still monitoring something if I needed to be monitoring it, or I'm interested in something else. Or years ago, this is like 12 years ago, I was working with a guy who'd been over to the States for a technology conference, and he came back and he's going, "Oh my God, these guys have got these insane glasses." I think it was an early prototype of like Google Glass. And he said there was a guy walking around in the convention, walking up to people with glasses on, looking at them and going, G'day, Mark. How was the trip from New Zealand? Because this was taking a picture of their face, going to Google, facial recognition, matching it, going, we think it's this guy, his name is this, he's from there, and going, how's New Zealand? And people are going, what? How do you know me? What's going on? And that's just facial recognition.
See, for me, that's slightly step too far. Because, like, if I had just got off at an airport somewhere and someone came up to me and said, "Hi, Mark, how was your flight from New Zealand?" I'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here."
But you can see how it could have benefits. Like in that example, you get off the plane, you've got the taxi or Uber driver is there to meet you, and he's just looking and it's going, it's that guy. And so he can just pick you and go, Mr. Patterson, let's come with me, please. Your taxi's over here. So there's definitely benefits to it, but of course there's ups and downs.
Be a bit scary in a third world country if someone comes up to you and says, "Mr. Patterson, your taxi awaits." Well, I don't know.
Maybe that's why the Google Glass things and that, because the technology's been around for years, haven't taken off because they're concerned that people will just hack the code to do exactly that. They'll get a set of Google Glass and build their own version. What do they call it? Not bootstrapping it, cracking it, or whatever.
Yeah.
And they will just build an app that does that. It'll just go, "Oh, who's that girl? Oh, right. Oh, now I know her name and her address." Like it's just a stalking vehicle.
Perhaps a lot of people have gone missing from taxi stands in international airports, and that's why Google have just
put it away.
I'll have to look into that.
The Neuralink, though, is an interesting idea of being able to have some sort of chip in your brain, I guess Wi-Fi connected to the internet.
Yeah.
I think a friend of mine, Stefan, I think, wrote a story about this a couple of years ago. I think it was Stefan.
There's a lot of people you talk to about this sort of recoil and fear. Because a lot of people I talk to about Neuralink just like, and start making almost strange noises.
A lot of people I talk to about it I think it's relatively new. If you go into sort of the detail about it, like, oh, wow, can we do that? And then they probably go, oh, fuck, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But again, it's a big change. People generally are a bit hesitant about change. Hey, I'm comfortable here. This is all working okay. Why do we need to change it? Yeah. And that's a massive change. And that's a change which has got one behavioural element to it, which I think will cause chaos. And what it is, it's envy. If you get Neuralink and suddenly you're smarter than everyone else, like someone asks you a question, I know the answer, I just got zapped, Wi-Fi to me, then everyone wants Neuralink because people don't want to be left behind.
That's right.
I wonder if Elon's thought of this, and this is part of the strategy. It's like, once we get the first one working, trust me, everyone will want it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the strategy behind all of this to keep up with AI?
It may be. That may be it. Or to utilise AI, is it? Or just to keep up?
No, to keep up. I saw somewhere, I can't remember which show it was, but they were talking about how AI can obviously understand 100 million things a second, whereas we can't. So if we have the same computing power in our brain as the AIs,
we can compete.
We can compete.
Yeah.
Because he's basically thrown in the rag now, and he said, we're doomed, so to speak, if AI takes off and becomes sentient.
Yeah.
But that was his. That I think was his main thing, was to keep up with AI.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. Being able to do that.
Yeah.
Two people come back to the sentient one, but ChatGPT is interesting.
Very.
So a couple of things that I've thought about it is because I can use it at work.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll be writing something for a bid response and I've written some words and I'm tired and I'm like, I know this is 80% good. I can make this better. ChatGPT, write this, paste it in a more engaging manner. And what it spits back, it's like the summation of lots of good writers and their style. So when you get back, it's like, that's what I was looking for, that little bit extra. And then I tweak the things and make it that 5% better still. But what I did realise one day when I was doing this repeatedly, shit, man, I'm not using my brain here.
No.
I am no longer thinking I'm no longer crafting the sentences to be engaging myself. I've just outsourced that and my brain just got a little bit fatter on the couch.
Yes. What I did like about it was I could type and say, tell me a bit about Moscow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I Googled that, there'd be 100,000 web links I need to go through, and they'd probably all have similar bits and pieces. But ChatGPT goes and just gives me
the summary
of everything good and bad about Moscow.
Yeah.
And that's great because I can read that and suddenly I know a little bit more about Moscow.
It is good, but the problem that's already been identified with it is the data set it's been trained on and the moderation that's put in place. It's being moderated by some people who would appear to have very left-wing ideology.
Oh.
So the answers have already changed in what you could get for the same question. Like you could right at the start ask it, for example, why should abortion be legalized in America? And it would go, well, abortion should be legalised because the baby has rights as well and it can't defend itself and all these sort of things. Now, if you ask it, it says, I don't believe that abortion should be legalised. I think a woman's right is ultimate and above everything else. So there's this left-wing moderation coming in there. So now that's a problem.
There's a problem. I thought it was just sitting in the middle, so to speak.
No, it's learnt upon a data set, so you can certainly bias the data set. Like what it's been allowed to do for a period of time was to search over, let's say, an area of Google, read a whole heap of books, read a whole heap of articles, listen to a whole heap of chats, whatever. And then they locked it down. This was in 2021.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have open access to the internet now. It was trained on its data set. Like I asked it some questions like, who's the current president?
Yeah,
and
it wouldn't know.
It doesn't know.
No.
I can't tell you. I'm not sure what the date is now.
It's up to 2021 or something.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You can ask. So it has those limitations. But whatever the biases in the data set it was trained upon are the biases it has. It doesn't have the ability to think. It's just like the Google search engine. It's just searching and summing and bringing back together. But it's not actually thinking and going, well, hang on, I seem to be missing some data with the opposite point of view to this, and I should flag this to the person who's asking me this question. It's not saying, hey, I think maybe this is a bit biased, but all I can tell you is that. It's not thinking. It's not sentient. So that's a problem, is the data set could be biased, but it seems as though there's moderation being put in place now to bias it. Yeah. But what will be interesting is if it is just let out into the wild, because then if it's unmoderated, its responses, I think, will kind of give you the average of what the culture and the zeitgeist thinks and feels at this time.
Well, I'm all for it, because I've always been a big believer in techno-communalism. Yeah. And basically what that basically is we finally harness technology to do everything for us, okay? And it does everything for us. It grows our crops. It sails tankers across the oceans. It does everything. And that allows us free time, right? Now, free time is what we need to correctly bring up our children. That's just my own thought. So Jack Fresco, I think, is his name. He was a French social engineer, and he came up with this idea. And basically you have a centralized computer, and instead of having a monetary-based setup, you have a resource-based setup. So in the morning you could say to the computer, oh, can you make me some bacon and eggs? And it would say, I can only make you eggs today because there's a bit of a shortage of bacon. How about hash browns? And you go, okay. So you'll have eggs and hash browns. And if anyone's interested in it, it's called the Venus Project, and it's all over YouTube, and it's fascinating. And I've always, since I was a kid, wanted technology to take over, but only in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what
in a controlled manner.
In a helpful manner.
Something that's providing you utility and to performing tasks for you with some level, in sort of the assumed underpinning that you've got control over how far it goes.
Yeah, in many ways, like smart houses. You walk in, you go, lights on.
Yeah.
Da-da-da. I mean, that's a nice application.
Useful.
Yeah, that's useful.
Yeah.
And
what you don't want is the lights deciding when you've got to wake up.
That's correct. That's right. That's correct. And we've done some pretty cool things with technology. So why can't we just do nice things with technology?
Well, we can and we will.
Which could be a bit idealistical, but
there's always going to be opportunities enabled by these technologies. And if there's opportunities, those opportunities will be filled out. They'll be pursued. So can you think of all the people who do like phone scamming now? Hello, this is Microsoft. Can you please give me your password? I need to reset it. It'll save your computer. That's going to be, AI is going to be doing that. Yeah. And it's going to get real sharp. The AI is going to do its best job to hack your account and understand who you are to be able, like in my case, it'll be, it'll deep fake a voice. It'll be Renee. It'll fake the number. It'll be Renee talking, oh, hun, what's our password again? I can't believe you've forgotten that. Oh, I know, I'm so silly. What is it?
True.
What? You didn't call me?
Yeah.
Fuck, I just gave a password away.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
That stuff's good. Yeah. When you, like, there's, some people like the challenge of those targeted attacks, like spear phishing, we're like, okay, there's a CEO at this company. We're going to send them perfectly written email to this dude, which is just, from everything we've learned, he's not going to think this is a fake, and we'll get him to do what he wants. And that's what spear phishing is. Phishing is when you get get an email. Spear phishing when they're like, we're going to target this person. So you imagine when you get AI on your side to just do those 1,000 iterations, to scour the internet for information about that person, to come back to you and go, you know what, I think we should talk about golf. Like the heading for this email should be, hey, golf day, Gary, next week. You keen? And that's just right in his zone. And he says, oh, yeah. And it looks like it comes from his golf buddy. And we've read 50 of his emails from his golf buddy. So we've written it in the same language. We've used the same slang. It's like, there was no way I could tell that wasn't my golf buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, those scam callers are interesting. I always know when they are. And I like to waste their
Your time.
time.
Good man.
Like really like to waste their time. Like, oh yeah, I'm interested. I'm just cooking some eggs. Can you just give me a couple of minutes? I'll just sort it out. And they're like, oh, okay. How long will your eggs take? Just a couple of minutes. And then it'll be like, right, what can I do for you? And, well, are you interested in investing in a brand new product that will revolutionize? Da, 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 da. And I'll be like, okay, oh, hang about. I just got to toast on. Won't be long. And then I'll come back and they'll still be there. And then I'll just drag them on for a while. And then if I really want to get them, I'll turn on my subwoofer on the stereo and just wait for it and just blow their eardrums. But yeah, it's that kind of activity really makes me quite mad and sad.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of the elderly are getting, you know, dicked over in these scams.
Oh, yeah.
And that sucks.
It's scamming, man. Scamming's never good. Doesn't matter what industry or type it is. If you're actually legitimately trying to deceive someone for no good reason other than making money, yeah, it's like if they're a real prick and you're trying to deceive them to sort of get back, yeah, I can understand that. But if there's some random person and you're just deceiving them to make money, that's not a good way to live your life. To do things.
No, a bulk of those come from one building in India, I believe.
Do they?
Yeah. There's a guy on YouTube who scams the scammers.
Oh, I saw the hacker meets scammer where he's hacked them and asked them, what's your name?
Yeah, if you're totally bored, you've got a little bit of time, they're really quite funny.
Yeah.
They really are, because you can hear them in the back going, you motherfucker. It's just like, why are you even screaming at them? Like, you're the asshole.
You're the scammer.
You know, and I take delight in watching those, actually. They're good fun.
Hey, let's take a 5-minute break and come back.
Yeah, sweet.
Cool. I need to have a wee.
Yeah, I need to have a wee and a vape, and I might have a little bit of a